Welcome, welcome. It's so wonderful to see all your beautiful faces. Thank you for being here. I'm Sherry Reichert-Ballou, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And oh my goodness, do we have a panel today? I have been so excited, looking forward to this. We have Marianne Redmacher. Hi, Marianne. And Alexandra Franson. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
And in just a moment or two, they're going to be introducing themselves and telling you a little bit more about their work. But first, I just wanted to tell you, so we are talking today about living and loving with intention. And the subtitle on Marianne's book is Remember and Do What Matters. And I felt like drawn to that over and over and over again every time I was thinking about this panel. Remember and do what matters. And both Alex and Marianne, I think, are just masters at doing this. And so they're going to be sharing a lot with us today. We're going to be in conversation. And I wanted to share something. I hope this is okay, Alex. I pulled something from the foreword of your book that I thought would be a great way to launch us off. This was written by Dr. Sasha Heinz, and it's the foreword to the checklist book. There's one thing that virtually all human beings share in common, which is this desire for integrity. We all want to feel proud of ourselves. We all want to feel like we can trust ourselves. We all want to honor the commitments we've made rather than flaking out. We all want to make promises to ourselves and to others and actually keep the promises we make. And I loved that. Thank you for letting me share that, Alex. I think that idea of keeping promises to ourselves is so huge. And so before I have Marianne and Alex introduce themselves, Marianne has offered to sort of bring us into the room with a special opening of our circle. Oh, you're muted, Marianne. We would love to hear you.
Haha. I get to be the participant that starts talking without unmuting herself. So now everyone else can feel safe and no embarrassment whatsoever when you do it a little while from now. This poem I have just written, and I am happy to share it here for the first time. Go ahead, go ahead. Yes, it's okay if you're shaking. We all are. Go ahead and dance. Dance, thanking your arms for the way they long to be wings. Dance, admiring your heart. Touching your sternum, praising it for all it holds without breaking. Dance, marveling at how you turn, twist, pivot, and bend, teaching your days how to be in flexible flow. Go ahead, yes, it's okay if you doubt. We all do. Go ahead and wait with your friend until the time becomes right again. Go ahead and finish that thing that you abandoned in frustration. Finish it. It'll make you stronger. Go ahead and say, what the hell? And do the irresponsible, impractical thing one more time. Don't turn off your ringer. Life is calling. Don't lock your back door. Flowers are being delivered anonymously. Don't say all you cannot be. Rather repeat. Repeat, I am the kind of person who lives daily into their promise. I am the kind of person who lives daily into the possibility. Say it even if you don't quite believe it. Maybe we'll dance into a day when we'll actually be able to fly.
Oh, thank you. So beautiful.
Thank you.
What made you choose that for us right now, right here?
Because I suspect, observing Alexandra's unorthodox ways of working in this modern world, and having watched her from when she was, because I'm just that much older than you, Alexandra. I've watched you from the start of your public career to where you are today. It's amazing. And I believe that we're sending people away with some really practical handles on that feeling of overwhelm, that I can't, let me tell you all the things I can't do. And feeling as if we don't have time for the must of our lives because there's so much. I think Alex and I are going to talk about those things today. Am I right, Alexandra Franzen?
You are right. Yeah, we're very much aligned in how we see the world and the challenges of making promises to ourselves and others and actually keeping them. Living intentionally. It's like so simple and yet so hard at the same time.
I love that. And somehow, Em, you knew that I was going to read that part about promises, and you just brought it right back. I love that. So let's have each of you introduce yourselves to this beautiful, beautiful group of people. Again, welcome. I'm just loving all of these faces here today, and some very familiar ones and some brand new ones. So what I'm going to have you do, and Alex, maybe we'll start with you to have you talk about, if you have your book there to hold up and share with people, and why you do what you do. And I'm also interested in this season of your life, whatever that means to you, this short season of your life right now, how are you living and loving intentionally?
Ooh, okay. Two-part question. So introduction and then how living and loving intentionally. So first of all, I'm so glad that you have a copy of my last book. So I recently moved into a new home, and it was just like 2 minutes away from my last house, but it's much smaller. There's a long story to that I won't go into, but as a result, I had to put almost all of my beloved books in storage. So much to my great embarrassment, I don't have any physical copies of my books with me, but I do have a digital copy, which is hilarious because normally I don't even like reading digital books and I love the handheld, but I see that M has a copy. So thank you. But anyway, introduction. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Alexandra. Most people call me Alex. Either one is totally fine. I'm a writer. I've been a writer pretty much my entire career. I've written 6 full-length books to date, both fiction and nonfiction. And I now live in Hawaii. I've lived in Hawaii for the last 3 years, and I'm never leaving. So you can all fly here and come visit me here. I hope that you will. And yeah, the question about living and loving intentionally, I mean, this is something, it's a practice that I've had for many, many, many years now, and that I wrote an entire book about. But the practice of making a daily checklist, just to sum it up really quickly, every evening as my day is kind of winding down, I start thinking about tomorrow. And I just ask myself, what are the top priorities for tomorrow? What are the things that I really want to get done? But also, like, what are the little moments that I want to have tomorrow that are not about achievement, but are just about, my mental health, my physical health, my relationships, things like that. And I make a simple checklist, and it looks like this. I usually print it out, and it has a couple of checklist items of things that I can do for self-care and mental health. It has a couple checklist items that are about relationships, like call mom while you're walking the dog, or remember to text Ben happy birthday, things like that. And then it has a couple of checklist items that are work related, or more like tasks that I need to complete. But it's such a simple thing, and yet it makes such a difference for me, because by doing it the night before and printing it out and putting it on my little clipboard, it means that when I wake up the next morning, there's this beautiful, thoughtful plan for the day laid out for me. So I don't have that feeling in the morning of like, who am I? What am I doing? What's going on? Where do I live? Like it's, it's taking my intention for the day and putting it in writing, in a checklist format. And it's like my anchor. Like I do it every single day of my life, almost every single day of my life. And it helps me to feel purposeful as I move through the day. And sometimes I complete everything on the checklist and sometimes I don't, but it is for me a wonderful practice of intention setting and then trying to live out that intention throughout the day.
Oh, and I see that Bree has put the link to Alex's book. And one of the things I just have to say, Alex, is, it's called the checklist book, right? The checklist, is that right? Checklist.
Yeah, the
yes.
checklist book.
But there's so much more, right? And I think that's the thing. It's to me, and I hope this isn't a spoiler alert for people, but like one of my favorite things that you do is you ask so many questions. You ask so many questions for us to consider and reflect on. And one of my favorite parts of it, when you were just talking about your own checklist, is that what is the first moment of my day? What do I want the first moment of my day? And that you actually put that on your checklist. Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to structure a daily checklist, is to think about, what do I want the first moment of my day to be? And what do I want the last moment of my day to be? So that you can do those things. Like maybe you want to start your day by snuggling with your partner or your kids or your dog, or you want to start your day with 10 seconds of silence or something like that. But actually deciding and writing it down and then checking it off so that you get that little tiny win to start your day. It feels amazing.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, because it would be altogether, too simple and wrong to think like, oh, this is a checklist of things to do, because so much of it is how we are, how we're being too. So
yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people, when you say checklist, people think like work, drudgery, to-do list. And when I create a checklist, it's a combination. It's tasks to do that are truly important, but also moments that you want to have in your day.
Yeah. And one more quick thing before we have Em introduce herself, which is, so in this particular season, we're still, surviving this pandemic. It's been, an upside down world full of lots of grief and illness. Are there any special things you've been doing in how you live in love during this particular time?
Yeah, I would say, and it's been difficult, but more unplugged time, more tech-free time to just be quiet has been something I've been trying to incorporate more of, for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I bet we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on too. It's a biggie. Thank you so much, Alex. Beautiful introduction. Em, hello.
It so happens that the story I'm going to tell to introduce myself perfectly dovetails with what Alex just said. I was barely old enough to have ordered wine in a bar when I went to work at this production company with thousands of employees operating a 24-hour clock, 3 shifts, 3 different shifts with supervisors and ship managers and floor managers and quality control people. And being the CEO, the plant manager of such an enterprise, was a huge job. And oddly, it was like an inner sanctum. You just didn't get into his office. Nobody did. It was like the Wizard of Oz. I started suspecting that he was actually never there, that he was out playing golf or driving one of the company's Mercedes. I'd see him go in, but I rarely ever saw him go out. I had to deliver a high priority project, and his gatekeeper flagged me in, and I walked in, and I said nothing, but I know it showed on my face. He was behind a newspaper with both feet crossed up on his completely empty wooden desk. And it was a huge, huge desk. Like, I could have taken a nap on that desk. It was so big. And I stand there breathing, horrified, and he does this. And he folds the newspaper ever so slowly and puts it down on the table. And he says, okay, now you know my secret. My secret to success is that I don't know how you did it, but nobody gets through that door before 11:15 every morning, where I consume copious amounts of world news, and then I sit and do nothing but think. You caught me when I was still grabbing the news, but be quick about it because I have a lot of thinking to do. The busiest, most successful, most amazing, and seemingly some of the happiest people do a whole heck of a lot of what looks like nothing. And so that's how I introduce myself to you. I have spent a lifetime aspiring to be one of those people who punctuate the day of trying to complete very many promises with doing absolutely nothing but think, like the scarecrow, just thinking good thoughts. And I get closer. I'm closer now than I've ever been to a little bit of that scarecrowness of just thinking it with my superior brain and coming to good and innovative solutions for myself and for the people I work with.
You are so, I love your storytelling. I love it. You've always got a great one in your pocket. Okay, so listen, you have to tell us a teeny bit more
about
how do you practice allowing yourself time to think?
I use it as a reward system. Today, I developed a full curriculum, piling research and doing the prompts and writing the email sequences. And I asked myself, I invited myself, because it feels so good. It feels so good to check that big old thing off the list. And with very purposeful intention, I did not break this project into small incremental steps because I wanted it done. So I told myself, if I got it done and I had enough time between then and this, I was going to sit and do some of that vagal nerve breathing, where you take 4 in, hold it for 2 counts, and release it for 6. And I was going to just bring my body back after this intense day of completing a curriculum. And then I sat in my, so soft, fall right into it, swivel chair, and turned it toward the beauty outside and just sat and looked at the butterfly and the dragonfly. And, because it's real life, the wasps. they're in there flying around with the beautiful dragonflies. So I use the time in the morning that's purposeful and it starts my day. And then I use chunks of thinking time as a reward.
I love that. I love that. And before we move on to, I'm going to ask you the same question. Is there anything different or special or extra that you've found that you've been doing in this particular season around living and loving intentionally?
I have my quartet of I don't have a name for them because I'm not really proud of this. I have my quartet of people that I complain to. I have a quartet, and I call them and I sing out my grand annoyance, and then I say, let it go. Thank you for hearing me and seeing me and validating or at least listening to my frustration. And instead of cooping that up, because I've found just so many grand annoyances in the last 48 to 60 months as I look around the world, it allows me then to pursue, especially with a couple of the members of that quartet, to ask the question, what else could be true? What else could be true? Now that I'm just flat out annoyed with this circumstance or this person, would you help me think of some of the other things that could possibly be true? And it's kind of like being talked off a ledge. Pardon the graphic example, but being that annoyed feels kind of like a position of danger. And then it lets me be all happy and blissful a good portion of the rest of the day, because I'm not carrying that steamy around with me. And the quartet doesn't change. They're the same people, and I'm their quartet. And we know that we allow each other the steam release so that we can offer greater grace to the bigger world.
I think it's funny you sort of preface that with, I'm not proud of this, because that is an amazing idea, right? That we could all adopt. And the singing.
I'm not proud that I'm annoyed so often at the time. That's what I'm not proud of, because I didn't tell you how often I have to call a member of the quartet, did I? I didn't mention that. Yeah. So, but I am proud that I have a system in place that lets me be gracious when people cut me off in traffic and stuff like that.
These are reminding me, and I love this, that one of the things in the checklist book is what Alex calls a survival guide checklist. And I know you both have actually just sort of brought in some things that I might put on a survival guide checklist, right? To call people and sing out my complaints, to unplug. Are there other things that are coming to your mind that, I mean, we are in a particular time, and there's a lot to grieve about, or to feel angry about, or sad about, or upset. What other things could we put on that very intentional list? Well, what are you showing us?
I'm showing you a pile of cards ready to go in the mail. And as it happens, even though I'm a greeting card maker and have been for 40 years, none of these are mine. These are all cards that other people have made. And on the top of the pile are what's left of a full sheet of stamps. And I do that on a regular basis all week long. And it gets my steps in because I walk far out to the street to put in a post box.
That is beautiful.
Just for the pause that refreshes. The rat terrier says, "Did you hear what I said?" And the Labrador says, "Yes." The rat terrier says, "What did I say?" The Labrador says, "Something about cats." The rat terrier stares at the Labrador, and the Labrador says, "To be honest, I only hear you about 31% of the time." "No, rat terrier." And the Labrador says, "Don't I get points for being honest?" Call the quartet. What about you, Alex?
I needed this today. We all need some dog jokes and poetry, and all of that. So yeah, so the idea of a survival checklist is exactly what it sounds like. It's a daily checklist for those times when you are just barely surviving and when you really need to simplify tremendously and just stick to the bare minimum, right? So the idea first came when I was going through a really, really hard time, mentally, physically, financially, all ways, a couple at this point, like I guess 5 years ago. And my therapist suggested, like, what are some small things you can do every day that will just help you feel a tiny bit stronger, like 5%, and or just feel relief, right? For even just a few minutes. What are some small things you can do? And I think for me, like when I think of a survival checklist, absolutely connecting with people, text message, card, like you're doing, that kind of stuff can be really nourishing. But on some days when you're like really down, sometimes you don't even have energy to write a card. And those are the days where I think about things like just open the window shades, just splash some cold water on your face. If you're too exhausted to make the bed, flip the pillow over, the other side's clean. Like, just it sounds silly, but sometimes we have to do the tiniest things because that's all we have energy for in that moment. But then those little tiny wins start to add up, and then the pillow flip, the water, the curtains, the light, it's like it fills you until then maybe you do have the energy to write a card or call a friend or go for a walk outside or something like that. So yeah, I'm a really big believer in the power of tiny steps to create momentum, right? That then leads to something bigger, especially in really difficult times when you're grieving or depressed or exhausted, or you just don't have the capacity that you normally have. Yeah.
Alex, I'm so grateful to both of you. I really wanted to bring that into our circle, so because I think sometimes when we think about living and loving intentionally, it might be outward focused, and that reminder, really that intentional loving starts at home. And I know both of you teach so beautifully about that. And I love what you both brought in about that. And it's why I typically start off the panels before we officially launch with just asking if people saw anything beautiful, because that's a survival tool for me. Yeah. And I've been going through a really hard time, and that, like, just that one little moment of beauty, turning our attention to that is on my survival guide. And when I hear other people talk about it, it just saves the moment, So yeah. I know that each of you brought something that you wanted to share. And then after that, we can open it up to who's here in conversation. But Em, do you want to start us off with what you...
I'd love to. I just got back home from 10 unexpected days in another state helping a friend who is in a dire circumstance, mentally and physically. And it was arduous. It was hard. It was tiring. And I'm finishing a book and starting another one and getting ready to go to Europe. There's a lot of tasks that act. Do you see what I'm doing on my sleeve? I can't tell if you can see. They're 4-year-olds. All of them coming around me, grabbing my clothes, saying, pay attention to me first. And here's what I do. Before I show you my mechanism, I'm going to tell you that every morning since I was a teenager, every healthy morning and every not so healthy morning, I dance. I dance for at least 4 minutes. My current favorite is Darius Rucker's Wagon Wheels. I think that's the name. It's just so stompingly grand to dance to. So this morning, after Webster had needed to go out 4 times in the night. And do you hear my voice? I'm still travel tired. So at 7 o'clock, I stub my toe in his dog toy on my way to making my coffee. And I look at my chore chart, which I affectionately call it my chore chart. And the first damn thing is dance. And that's what I said this morning at 7 o'clock. Great. The first damn thing is dance. I'm not dancing. I'm not dancing today. I get the cup, do the things to make my coffee, and I'm like, all right. And just like a kid, march over the speakers and put on the wagon wheels. And I'll tell you what, at the end of 4 minutes, I'm like, coffee. Let's get this party started. Here's my chore chart. It changes every week. I start Saturday night. Excuse me. Yeah, it is Saturday night. I do it Saturday night, and it starts Sunday. I generally like to start my weeks with Mondays, but this is how it came, so ideal. And then every week, the things change. This is not where my primary task, my secondary task, my tertiary task, that's not where these go. It so happens that one of the most important tasks is right here. It's my courage book for Mango. And that is the only task on this list. Everything else is dancing, health, menu planning, my environment, playing with Webster, walking, maintaining clean surfaces, because I live in a tiny house too, and it's tempting to make everything a staging area instead of spacious. And so this list is never the same after 7 consecutive days, except for dance. Dance is always at the top of the list. And then Saturday night, before I erase it all and recreate it, I ask myself, where are the great deficits? Picture that with a G and a D, the great deficits. And it happens to be walking and reading. So far this week, the great deficits have been with my 2-mile logging and sitting down and reading a book. So that tells me that either I've misidentified what matters to me, or I've ignored what matters most. And then Saturday, before I start the new list, I get to decide if reading and walking hit the road or if I'm going to put them closer to the top. And it's magnetic, and it lives normally on my refrigerator. Don't you love it when props fail? That's my dinner tray that just fell over.
But didn't you get your walking in because you walked the letters and cards to the mail?
It would be so helpful if it was a mile out to the post box. Dang, maybe I can do something about that. But no, it's just like 2 acres, 1.5 acres to the post box.
Send one more card.
Oh, that's a great idea. I can only put 1 card at a time in the post box.
Back and forth, back and forth.
Alex, isn't Brenda brilliant?
Genius.
Actually, I'm doing that.
So, Em, I had a question as you were describing that. I was curious. First of all, I love it. I love that you have these like anchor activities that you commit to doing every day that make you feel good and that help you feel like your best self. And then you mentioned, so at the end of the week, you kind of evaluate and you go, okay, I didn't walk a lot. I didn't read a lot. Why is that? Is that it just really isn't a priority or a value and I can just cross it off the list? Or is it that I'm avoiding something that I really do want to be doing. And I was curious, like, how do you tell the difference? Like, what's the signal that you get that lets you know, yep, it's this, or nope, it's that?
Well, answer A is you always know looking back a couple years later. It's remarkably clear 24 months down the road why you were procrastinating on certain tasks in this particular moment. I love that question that I use with my quartet of complaining. What else could be true?
Mm-hmm.
And with reading, the workaround there, which so far this week hasn't worked around, is that I signed up for an audiobook thing. So the moments that I don't have my torso in a chair thinking great thoughts, I could actually be in exchange with a book, listening, not eyes on page. And I love paper, and I love learning more. Mm-hmm. And so I'm signed up for an audiobook program, and I'm going to make sure it stays on the list next week. So after I ask myself what else could be true, mm-hmm. I usually give myself, I don't give myself 2 years, Alex, but I give myself a little bit of time for distance, because I figure if I'm busy in denial or actively procrastinating, I'm not going to have the bandwidth to recognize it right when I'm in the weeds of it. Mm. And so I'll revisit it in a week or so. Maybe I'll write about it. And then, usually have one of those moments come along.
That was a great question, Alex. Do you have an answer yourself, Alex?
You know, I think similar. I often talk about trusting my hut, which is my heart and my gut, my hut. And I do think that, you know, if it's something like, you know, reading, for example, like we were discussing, if you say, I want to read a lot of books, I want to read, but then you just never make time to read. I do think that if you kind of get quiet, sit quietly, walk quietly, take a shower, something like that, the truth is usually right there. Your hut knows the truth and will tell you, you know, reading is just not a priority right now because you're working on a lot of projects, and that's okay. Or reading is a priority right now. Turn off your phone, read a book. And like your hut will usually give you like a pretty straight talking answer. I think if we make the space to listen. And then I think there are times in life where you don't get a straight answer, where it's more just like, I just don't know, and I'm just going to not know for a while, and that's okay too. And I think that's kind of what Em was getting at, is like, sometimes you need to just let yourself not know for a little while, and that's okay too. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we could stay for about 17 hours today. There are so many things I want to talk to you two about. Alex, I know you brought something that you wanted to share with us. Would this be a good time?
I'm a little nervous, but yes. So, it's 11:11 in Hawaii. Right at this exact moment. What? That was cool. Okay, now I'm less nervous. So, okay, yeah. So we were talking a little bit about checklists and the checklist book, which was my last nonfiction book. But before that book came out, I released a novel through Mango. Thank you so much, Brenda and Mango Publishing. And what's interesting is that the novel obviously is fiction. The checklist book is nonfiction. So very different types of books, but really revolving around the same question and the same theme, which is, what do we do with the time we've got left, right? Like, how do we live a life that feels good? So I thought I would read, I found a little piece from the novel that I thought I would read. It's actually at the end of the story, and it's a little kind of like post note from the author, AKA me. It's only 5 pages long, so it'll be pretty quick. Does that sound good?
Perfect. And by the way, I think it's your book versary, isn't it? So happy.
Yeah, so this month, October 2021, marks 3 years since this particular novel was released. It's called So This Is the End, a love story. And you can find it where books are sold and at your local library, etc. So here is a little note at the end of the book. So this part is just me talking. It's not the fictional story. I have a friend who remembers all of her dreams. She wakes up at 4 or 5 in the morning most days, and she records her dreams in a journal. She has collected over 80,000 words so far. Some people just have that ability, the ability to bolt awake in bed and remember everything that you just dreamed about. I am not one of those people. I almost never remember my dreams. And when I do, it's usually an unbelievably boring situation, like a dream where I'm reviewing an Excel spreadsheet, or a dream where I'm answering an email and, oh, gasp, the horror, I notice a typo. It's that sort of thing. But one night, something happened that I had never experienced before. I woke up in the middle of the night really abruptly, like I'd been ripped into consciousness. I felt feverish and disoriented. My heart was pounding like I'd been sprinting uphill, and I was crying, but I didn't know why. I felt my partner's presence behind me, warm and solid, and that comforted me. My heart rate began to slow down. I exhaled, and then I remembered everything. I remembered the entire dream that I just had while I was sleeping. I could see every single detail, like a movie replaying in my head. In my dream, I had died, and somehow doctors brought me back to life, a second chance. But they warned me, this will only last for 1 day. You have 24 hours. Throughout the dream, I navigated my final day on Earth, and I remember feeling this powerful, almost unbearable sense of urgency. I felt pressure, a feeling of anxiety, but coupled with a desire to make every moment count. Time was passing too quickly. Everything was intense and bittersweet. I hugged my parents and didn't want to let go. I laid down on the grass with my partner and pressed my skin to his and desperately wished that we could have just a little bit longer, just a few more moments. Inside that dream, I remember feeling so grateful for an extra day, for a second chance. So grateful, but at the same time, frightened and heartbroken, because I knew this is the end. There was nothing I could do to hold back time and to stop the inevitable ending from coming, and I wasn't ready to say goodbye. I often cry when I think about that dream. I wish that I were a more talented writer so that I could convey fully how much it impacted me. For me, that dream was a wake-up call. It felt like God or the universe, or whatever term you prefer, was shaking me awake and saying, this is your one and only life. This is it. And I hate to break it to you, but this could end at any moment. So go live, really live, appreciate each day. Don't waste time. Don't sleepwalk and text and email and tweet your way through life. Don't just stare at a digital screen for 12 hours a day. Don't just exist. Be alive. That dream was the inspiration behind the novel. I hope that you enjoyed Nora and Ren's love story. I hope that it inspires you to make a special meal for your sweetheart tonight and say, I love you, and hold your kids close and take that spontaneous trip with a friend instead of postponing it until next year, and turn off your phone and look up into the night sky and really feel your life. If you had exactly 24 hours remaining in the story of your life, what would you do? What would matter? What wouldn't matter at all? What would you miss the most about the world? Would it be the smell of pancakes on Sunday morning, the feeling of a freshly laundered sheets on your bed, the quiet satisfaction that comes from finishing a tough, sweaty workout or hike? Would it be beach days, friends and cold beers around the fire pit, or the pulse of your favorite music? Would it be curling your fingers through someone's hand as you meander through the aisles of the grocery store? What are the moments that you love the most? Let's try as best we can to fill our lives with those kinds of moments and to appreciate them fully as they're happening. Today is here. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. The end is always coming. There's no time to waste. Thanks for letting me read.
Oh, Alex, what a gift. Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Thanks for letting me share. I feel emotional reading that, and I haven't read that particular passage for probably 4 years, and I don't even remember writing it. But I was just connected, back to who I was 4 years ago. And I think that reminder of there's no time to waste is one of those timeless reminders that we need to hear again and again and again until it gets through our thick noggins and we really live it.
Well, Alexandra, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Did that dream completely make you pivot the direction of your life? Because I think it did, more than just the novel.
Oh yeah, definitely. That dream was a pivotal moment in my life. It definitely inspired that novel. It inspired a lot of things afterward. And yeah, it kind of shook me awake and caused me to reevaluate a lot of things, like big things and small things, right? Why am I sitting 14 hours a day in front of a computer screen? Why am I, using my phone as if I'll die if I put it away? There was a lot of, why am I doing it that way? Kinds of questions that arose after that dream. And yeah, I think it did shift the direction of my life in some ways, in a lot of ways, for sure.
Brenda, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So all of the books that Mango publishes are so amazing, right? And life-changing. And these two books, I feel like 3 books really, and more than that. There's just some, like, to me, very essential threads in them. Have we covered like what it was that drew you to these 2 authors and to all of their books? Are there other aspects that we haven't even touched on yet?
Well, it just so happens that the books, all of the books, but especially Checklist Book and Live with Intention, are 2 of my favorite things. Every day at the end of my work day, I make a clean to-do list checklist. And it's a totally self-care. I view checklists and to-do lists as major self-care. A chore chart too, like that's some hot self-care right there. And then also I set intentions every morning. So at the end of the workday, I have my checklist to-do list. Then in the morning, before I even, pretty much the minute I wake, I open my eyes and wake up and become a conscious being again, hopefully. I set my intention for the day. And oftentimes, it has things that are work related. Like, I hope this meeting goes well. I'm looking forward to heart wisdom. And I hope that I have some breakthrough inspiration. And I always do, actually. And I hope that for everyone at these. And then I also intend things about the planet and health, for global health and things like that. So this day and these two wonderful women encompass two of the most important things in my life. Those are absolute rudders of my life, they're guides for my life. So I would say that has something to do with why I wanted to publish the books. But really, all of the people we have at all of the writers and Mangoes we have at Heart Wisdom are this way. But there's something about both Alexandra and Marianne Rodmacher. I feel like they are pure inspiration on two legs. It comes through them, through them to us. And I just want to drink it in. So I'm being kind of selfish here, but what can I say? To some extent, I publish what I need, and I know other people need it too.
Oh, Brenda, that's awesome. And I forgot to say, for anyone who might know, because we got some people who knew, Brenda is the associate publisher at Mango Publishing. So we have her to thank for all being here together. So
you're welcome.
And she's a very talented, gifted author herself, with many titles in various houses, including Mango.
I like to keep busy.
Yes. I wonder when you sleep, actually.
Well, actually, setting intentions every morning and having that rudder of a checklist is the engine of accomplishment for me as well. And if something no longer works, I have learned to drop it, and that was really hard, which is why listening to you two, and being reminded by Alexandra so cogently and powerfully with her reading that life is short. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Do it, live it, be it now.
Mm-hmm. Alex, I have a question for you. We've got 5 minutes left. This is flying by. I promised people they could ask questions, but I also know that you were going to lead us in just a short sort of something that people could take away for themselves, kind of exercise. Do you have a sense which direction to go?
Ooh, I mean, the exercise is very brief, and it can also be something that folks do later on their own time, but it might be fun to talk about. And then we can ask some questions. Yeah. So it's really simple. And it kind of combines the novel about if you had 24 hours to live and the checklist book and making lists into one. So the question is just, if you knew that you had just 24 hours to live, what would you do with your time? What would your final 24 look like? What would you want it to be? And I invite you to just make a list. Literally just start making a list. And I call it a final 24 list. Write down what you would do, people you'd want to see. Maybe you want to start your day by watching the sunrise and end it by watching the sunset. Maybe there's a particular meal you'd want to have. Maybe there's something you need to say, like Sherry's beautiful book, Say It Now. Maybe there's someone you need to forgive. What would you want to do in those last 24 hours? So make a list. I love this exercise because it really brings into sharp focus, what really matters. And go try it. Do it right now, or do it later today, or do it tonight with your family around the dinner table or whatever. But yeah, that's it. Make a list. Final 24. See what comes up for you.
So beautiful, Alex. Yeah. And maybe we could just take 10 or 15 seconds to just close our eyes and just if one thing might drop in for your final 24 list, just to connect to that in your heart. And we do just have a few minutes left. I do hope everyone will spend more time with your list. And I promise people time for questions, and I'm so sorry because Em and Alex are so amazing. We might have to just see if we could corral them and get them back for another Heart Wisdom panel. Because I know we also didn't have a chance. Thumbs up from Brenda. Em, I know that you had also, there was something else really important that you wanted to bring in, and we don't have a lot of time, but you just want to touch on it?
I do.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel bad, if it makes you anxious or experience regret, stop doing it. If you go down a rabbit hole on a social media platform and you chastise yourself, stop doing it. If you dread it, resist it, have this feeling about this thing that you've said you're going to do, find a way to complete your promise to it and then stop doing it. Your body tells you the truth all the time. So when your shoulders are up here, that's your body telling you, that thing you're doing now, would you stop it? That's such a profound grace that our body gives our brain, and particularly our belly. The noises that your belly makes is not just what you had for lunch. It's other things happening as well. So listen. And so you saw what I did with the social media element there. Just slipped it right in.
Oh yeah, nicely done.
If it makes you feel like you've wasted time, maybe you've wasted time.
Yeah. Yes.
Alex, jump on in. Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, all of that. I second that emotion.
Great.
This has been so beautiful. And Sherry, Brenda, Em, everyone, what a treat. What a delightful Wednesday treat.
Alex, shall we say that we're willing to come back in concert and do this again?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Please ask us.
Oh, you bet. Oh,
Okay.
there's so much more to talk about. And this has been, I found myself tearing up when we closed our eyes. Just, I felt like all of the emotion from what you two have brought. And I just deeply, deeply appreciate. I know you're both very busy and also intentional about your time. So it means so much that you chose to be with us. And I would love to have you come back. Thank you. And thank you, Brenda and Bree and Liz Marie and everyone from Mango. Thank you to everyone who came. You matter. I just want you to know, seeing your faces, and even if it's just your name and we didn't see your face, we feel you here. Your energy matters, your presence. There's no better gift. And I thank you so much for showing up for us today. We are here every Wednesday with authors and great conversation. And if you want to be on the mailing list, Bree can get you on the mailing list. But thank you for showing up. And do that list after we go, okay? Do your final 24. Thank you all. Love to you all.
Thank you. Up to you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.